Hello, and welcome to another, and probably hopefully going to be the final PFS Pro Football Seahawks Good Trash. As always, I'm joined by Ken over in Madison. How are we, Ken?
I'm good, Stuart. How are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. Just a bit lost now. The draft season's over. Rookie camps obviously is going to be a bit behind closed doors. We don't really get anything until starts hold hanging over the team's head. So yeah, a little bit lost at the minute, but I'll find something to do. I'll find something to pass the time. So tonight, all we're going to do is just run through all 10 picks. I got that part right. That's the only part I got right, that we needed 10 picks. And the 21 undrafted, we're not going to cover all 21 because some of them we are openly admitting that we haven't seen anything of them. But we're just going to pick a few out who we have seen and who we're excited by and who we think have a real shot at making the 53 or at least finding their way onto a practice squad, if not in Seattle, hopefully in Seattle, obviously, 31 other teams, and for one name in particular, possibly the CFL. So yeah, so we'll kick off. We talked about him briefly during our live cast of the second day. Jermaine Ifedi was the 31st overall pick for Seahawks. Offensive tackle from Texas A&M, 6'5", 325 pounds, a 7-foot wingspan, I read somewhere. Obviously, earlier today, as I mentioned off the air, Pete Carroll said on his spot on Sirius today that he's going to be first off day one as the right guard. Are you surprised by that move? And do you think his future is outside?
Yeah, I think over time he's going to be coached into being a solid right tackle. But it's more surprising because it looked like Mark Lewinsky had made some headway last season and would be on the fast track to get a starting role at the guard spot. And we'll see what shakes out in training camp. But I guess to have Ifedi be an immediate contribution to the offensive line, it makes more sense for him to be at guard because both Carroll, Schneider, and even Cable are kind of in a consensus that Ifedi's a little bit raw, but he's got that great aggressive mentality that they're going to use to make sure he can hold his own eventually at the tackle spot.
Yeah, so with the move to right guard, his comparisons to James Carpenter from a few years ago even grow stronger, don't they, really? But that also, even if he is the right guard day one against the Dolphins, that's quite a big right side of the line we've got now with Ifedi and similarly 6'8", 7", I think, Jamarcus Webb is. So that was clearly part of the plan entering this offseason. Sweezy was athletic. Gilliam's obviously athletic because he's been slid over to the left-hand side. But these two now are, Glowinski probably fits into this word as well, are more of a mauler at that position, aren't they? They're less finesse and just bully you, basically. And would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would, and that should bode well for the running game at least. We'll see how pass protection goes because there are a lot of speedy and tricky edge rushers that they'll have to contend with. But in the running and run blocking, for sure, that's going to benefit.
Yeah, and there's also one Mr. Aaron Donald they have to see twice a year as well. So you'd hope there's fair better than Nowak and Sweezy did in week one last year. Second pick. Well, quickly before we move on, one of Ifedi's quotes from his press interview he did straight after the pick was said it's a long way away from where he is, but I don't think I could have landed at a better place than the Seattle Seahawks. That's something we're going to hear quite a lot while Pete Carroll and John Schneider are in town, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Seattle throwaway. Yeah, it's still very cool to hear though, even at this stage with all the success, that everything's consistent at that part, and obviously they made an impression on him when they came across him in the draft process. Second pick, second round, although a little earlier after a trade up of about 8 picks, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And they came up and got, for me, a first round defensive tackle, probably top 20 defensive tackle Jaron Reed, defensive tackle out of Alabama, 6'3", 311 pounds. Schneider, I think he's been echoed by Kuiper, Mayox of the world. Reed is the best run stuffing tackle in this draft. For me, he was better than his teammate Sean Robinson. So the trade, it was worth it. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. To get that first-round talent, I mean, like you said, he was projected to be a top 20 guy. It was surprising that he'd fallen so far. And, I mean, it was part of the depth of the defensive line in this year's draft, but still, it was an absolute steal, so they had to move up to make sure no one took him before them.
Yeah, obviously, if Eddie's in line for the right guy, he's going in competition with Lewinsky, possibly Christian Sicoli at that position. Jaron Reed's probably got the best path to an immediate start or immediate role of all the drafts.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. I mean, he looks to be definitely on the fast track to be the next Brandon Meebane, a huge run stuffer who can handle a couple of linemen in the trenches and be able to stand them both up. And that's what he was doing at his workouts at the Senior Bowl. I mean, he was just impressing everybody. And to have some scouts call him one of the best run stuffers they've seen in a very long time, and that just says what he's capable of to contribute. I mean, the only downsides to his game is that he's not as great a pass rusher. But if you have the best run stuffing skill set attached to you, it's not like you have to be the best pass rusher in the game either. So it's hard to find flaws with him when he's so good at being that run stuffer.
Yeah, and that pass rushing will come through. Brandon Meebane and Rubin column last year, but they got pressures, particularly in the running game. I think I read some of Bama's defense give up, I think, just over 60 yards a game on the ground, maybe even less than that, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
The defensive line should be able to do that at collegiate level. As you see, Marvin Gordon, a couple of running wild, you got Fournette, who they come up against, and 50 to 60 yards per game is just ridiculous. And it seems that Jaron Reed was a big part of that. Third round pick, there's a long old wait. There's a real long wait. It felt like it was a longer wait than it was for the Ifedi pick the night before, but it eventually came. It was a bit of a surprise, but also an exciting surprise when you watch some of the clips, the clips people have put together of him. CJ Prozise, running back out of Notre Dame, 6 foot, 220 pounds. This is an exciting pick, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And that seems to be the consensus around the Seahawks internet pages. I mean, just look at any one of his clips, and I've looked at a bunch over the past few days now, and the guy refuses to go down, and he's got great quick athleticism, and all he has to do is make one cut, and then boom, he's already past the second level 30 yards away. I mean, he's a really exciting guy to look at and could be a perfect third down guy that the Seahawks are looking for.
Yeah, I think that's the immediate takeaway. Everyone went, well, that this is Fred Jackson's role taken up, which is what we really wanted to come away with. I think we all did with the Derrick Henry rubbishing that we all did over the past week or so. We only needed a third down back. It appears that we got more than that later on in the draft. Prozise is as versatile as they come, really. I mean, obviously he's got a pretty healthy background in special teams, side of the ball also, and then he's got all the talent he got. He's getting 1 year. But yeah, as you say, the clips, you load up clips of him, it's just like a creature. He touches the ball. It's really impressive, really exciting. And with how Pete Carroll has used people like Reggie Bush and Percy Harvin in the past, that could be a similar path or way they want to see him used in Seattle. Would you agree, or would you make that comparisons?
Would you mind repeating that last question?
Having and Reggie Bush comparisons people have made. Yeah,
I mean, that's fair. And with the way they've been creative with those kinds of players, I mean, when they go out of that system, I mean, Reggie Bush going into Detroit, there was a little bit of production for him, and then things started to go off. But the Seahawks coaches will know how best to use these athletic and creative playmakers. I mean, that's why both Jacob and I really liked Irvin out of San Jose State. But, I mean, Procise is just a more polished version of that for sure. So I'm really excited.
I lost the last bit of that. We'll move on. They come quickly into the third round after a long wait between Reed and Procise, but then it was another surprising pick. Nick Vannett, another big boy, 6'6", 255 pounds. He's listed as. Finally, a replacement for Zach Miller.
Yeah, I mean, the executives here for Seattle were really set by saying that this is the best blocking tight end in the class. And that's really saying something because that's going to be a huge need. I mean, Jimmy Graham, they brought him in. He knew what he was going to do through the air, making great catches, but the blocking wasn't exactly there. And the same thing with Luke Wilson. He's a very athletic tight end, but there's work to be done with blocking. But Vannett can really come in right away and be that kind of Zach Miller guy. And a red zone target as well, which is what Zach Miller was when he was around.
Yeah. Also another pick, I think, which is enhanced the red zone offense to us less of the great first. But I think he's the tight end. If Jimmy's about week one, Luke Wilson could probably step in into his shoes, or there's going to be in different ways. I would use Jimmy. Cooper Halfett hasn't exactly set the world alight, but he was and drafted camp invite and all that from Duke, so he's probably exceeded expectations when he joined the team. But that is a third round pick. It's a relatively hefty price for the role he's going to play. But as you said, Wentz has to be quite smooth and seems to have decent hands, so that could be something they're obviously look to enhance with all the columns. Pat McPherson's the tight ends coach as well, so it's an interesting pick. It could prove to be one whereas he's probably not going to be a start, he's going to be a solid pick for the 3, 4, 5 years at the very least. And if they get that solid production in the blocking and with the stats, it's a decent pick at this stage. Next pick was my boy Reese Gambo, offensive line. Apart from the surname, which seriously needs to be etched in my brain before now in September. Although he played left tackle at Boise, it appears he's going to be left guard for the Seahawks. Do you like that move? Do you agree with that move? Do you think it fits him?
It's a tough call. I mean, to slide him in at guard, it could make sense with the ankle injuries he's had in his past. If it takes a little bit out of his athleticism, it makes a little bit more sense to slide him inside at guard. And that's really those ankle injuries that were kind of holding him back, which made people like us think he was going to fall a lot later in the draft. But obviously the Seahawks are seeing something. And there was a piece I read that made a good point that one of his ankle injuries was only in surgery about 5 months before all his workouts, which made him one of the lowest on the Spark ratings, which usually says a lot that the Spark ratings are a good indicator of what the Seahawks like to do. But I think coming off an injury and you don't know how well it's going to heal, because those ankle injuries do take time. They're not the same as an ACL injury, of course, in terms of severity, but if it doesn't heal properly in a certain amount of time, it could be damaging. So it's a little bit of a risk involved, but if they were set on him, I mean, they couldn't afford waiting into the 4th round, obviously, because they had given up 124 to Chicago. So another instance for Seattle balancing risk and reward. But if they like him this much and already have him slated to slide in at guard right away based on what you heard via SiriusXM, I'm going to give the front office the benefit of the doubt here, because obviously with the other names at that position that were still on the board, it was definitely a question mark for me. But he does have a good skill set. It's just those injuries.
Yeah, the injury. I mean, he hasn't had a long run of games, so the tape is limited. The concerns, obviously, as you say, are there. But I think with Reese and with Ifedi, they both seem to be front and central Tom Cable guys. Tom Cable was the one who went to out privately, and this is as it was with Carpenter and Moffat in the lockout affected year 11. This is definitely giving him the keys and look, we've tried it this way. It hasn't really worked out for the most part. We're going to try it the way we wanted to try it 5 years ago. And so yeah, it will be interesting to watch. I think this could be where we see Glowinski really pushing for a starting role, more so the right guy. And if it is a Glowinski, it certainly looks like Gary Gilliam's got the left tackle spot nailed down. Unless they pick up a player we've cut in the next few weeks. As athletic as the right side was last year, which caused problems, the left side being athletic is not as much of a concern, because I think obviously with it being the blind side, they kind of moved the way that Gilliam, with his athleticism, hopefully will be able to. So that's one reason I think that this could be where Glowinski pushes Reese more than he's going to push Jermaine. So it's going to be interesting. Hopefully, as we said a couple of weeks ago, they nailed down the offensive line. It's only going to be beneficial to everyone, and us fans, 12s, all involved, will be beneficial if we do nail that down quicker. Now, for the next pick, he said we didn't have a fourth round, but we made a fourth round selection. We swapped sevenths, and we gave up a fifth round pick. Was it last for next year to the Patriots? Yeah. And also, the interesting note on this player is his college, Ken. As Ken on Saturday evening said, Maryland are a bad team. Quinton Jefferson, defensive tackle, Maryland, 6'4", 290 pounds. Thoughts on the pick? It's someone I haven't seen anything of. So they say Maryland, apart from Sean Davis, were not much fun to watch.
Yeah, the team as a whole, I'm going to keep saying this, the team as a whole just can't tell. It takes the other team to have an off day to make Maryland look even better. But that's not to say Maryland won't get good in a couple of years if they still recruit very well, because obviously there are several playmakers that are getting teams very excited after this draft. Sean Davis, you just mentioned, Yannick Ngakoue, and then of course this guy, Jefferson, slated as a one-gapper. I mean, I haven't seen too much of him, but he's got good length, good arm length, 40 under 5. So you bring a little bit more of that athleticism maybe than a Reed guy. So a little bit of a change up again, and making sure there's youth in the interior of the line going forward, because Ruben's approaching 30. I think he's turning 30 in one of the summer months. So it's a plan for the future. I'm not sure how much action we'll see out of this guy, out of Jefferson in the first year or so, but could be a guy waiting in the wings. We might see him on a couple of downs here and there. But I like that they continue to stock up, and if they wanted to get this guy specifically, there's got to be something that we'll probably have to take a closer look at.
Yeah, I mean, it did move up quite a way. The cost wasn't that much compared to what the Buccaneers gave up to move up for a kicker. So it's relatively it's not a bad deal to move up that far and no give up that much, really. I think this could be a Jimmy Staten-like project. Obviously, Staten didn't well at all, but Jefferson has impressive stats. I think got 12.5 sacks, similar number in tackles for loss as well. So while he's a player who escaped my attention, it is a pick that I'm going to follow closely. The player I'm going to follow closely over the summer rookie camp this weekend as well. Actually, I won't be able to see any of that clearly, but I'll be avid Twitter searching and looking for his name to pop up in any interviews that the coaches and people in the know and at VMAC do. With Jefferson, Did you see a way that they use him how we thought they might use a Bullard or a Billings kind of type player, or is he just going to be in one slot and not moved around like a Michael Bennett is? Do you think he is just going to be an interior guy?
I think predominantly interior, but if they want to move things around, I think he's got enough athleticism to at least try it. I mean, obviously he's no Jonathan Bullard, but I mean, this is a guy that will be in a rotation at least in his first couple of years. So whoever's tired, I mean, he'll go out and fill that gap. So we'll get to see a little bit of what he has to offer, but I think predominantly the Seahawks have him pegged as an interior guy.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Next up, in the 5th round, another running back in the form of Alex Collins out of Arkansas, 5'10", 217, which if you look over in the past, I think even, I can't remember what his 40 time was, but 5'11", 217 is pretty much ideal measurables under Pete Carroll. Do you think the way he's combine and pro, they seem to go in full laps?
One more time.
Do you think his combine workout struggles, and I mean, he did not seem to have he seemed to struggle really quite a lot in Indianapolis. Do you think he's fell right into our laps? Because some project him to go a little earlier than this.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, this is a guy who generated great production at Arkansas. And Brett Bielema, the head coach, was a former Wisconsin guy, likes to run the football, rely on that running game, and he got a lot of stuff done for them. I mean, I think it was the first guy for them since McFadden to have consecutive 1,000-yard rushing seasons. And a little compact, of course, at 5'10", 216, 217. We'll see how he does, but I think the combine probably would have disillusioned a bunch of scouts. But it was good for the Seahawks to keep this guy on the radar, because an SEC guy from more of an under-the-radar program to be able to contribute that much yardage on consecutive seasons against really good defenses and front sevens, that's something to look at for sure.
And also with Bielema, as we mentioned about Nick Saban the other day with Pete Carroll, he's a coach they can probably trust now with all the glowing remarks he left when we drafted Russell Wilson. So that could be another note which kind of put his workout numbers out of sight for Schneider and the scouts, and obviously the decision makers at the top. With this pick and another pick we're going to get to later, Christian Michael has a real long shot of making this roster right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, we still haven't gotten to the third running back at this point, but I mean, the team going heavy on running back, I mean, it makes sense because Rawls is coming off an injury, and Michael the Seahawks have given him chances ever since they drafted him, and they've never been quite sold on him, and they brought him back basically out of necessity, really. So it kind of makes it a long shot for him, I know. Might not be what he wants to hear, but maybe that gives him a good a kick in the pants to see what he can produce out in training camp and prove these coaches wrong, because I think he's hanging on a really thin thread here. Yeah,
and obviously as the fire that was lit under him by being tossed around the AFC East for a few weeks last year clearly was beneficial to us in certain games at the back end of last year as well. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what this does to Michael for the summer. Next up was the 6th round pick, Joey Hunt, the centre out of TCU. The main times I saw Hunt was when I was watching someone we're going to get to later. But the most interesting thing for me is the fact that they drafted, although I mocked Max Turk to us, so I did kind of see them doing this, but they drafted a definitive centre, no more converts, Curry or McGovern and Dale really want to meet us two and Ryder and Jacob. So were you surprised that they drafted the definitive centre?
Well, I didn't catch all of what you said, but I think I got the gist. So yeah, I think I got the gist of what you said. I'm gonna roll with it, and you correct me if I'm answering a totally unasked question, all right?
All right.
All right. I mean, Patrick Lewis coming in the year, and you mentioned Sicoli, of course. I think the Seahawks knew that was going to be a project. Probably wouldn't convert immediately to fantastic results. So they can afford to go out for a center like this guy. And the coaches and Schneider, I mean, they're all praising his awareness and intelligence on the line. He knows every single assignment, and that was one of the best things about Max Unger. And if he seems to already have a leg up on Patrick Lewis, he may be undersized, of course, but that doesn't mean he can't succeed. I mean, there was a guy I was looking at last year, David Andrews, who was coming out of Georgia, and he was labeled as an undersized center, and he ended up starting a bunch of games for the Patriots last season and did a pretty good job. So the whole undersized argument for an offensive line, I mean, if he makes up for it with really good intelligence, which is what Joey Hunt seems to bring to the table, I think it made for a much easier pick. Because, again, you're getting a young guy who already seems to have all the tools in place, and you want Russell Wilson to build rapport with someone for the rest of his career, which hopefully he stays in Seattle for the rest of it. So getting a young guy who looks to have pretty good upside right away to build rapport with Wilson, make that a solidified position, and make Max Unger seem like a thing of the past, I'm all for it, going for a definitive center.
Yeah, you did answer the question, so
okay,
well
cool.
done, Ken. Yeah, so with Pete's comments, where I think he got in the one player they couldn't leave that draft out. I'm guessing he meant for day 3. Does that put him ahead of Patrick Lewis?
What about Patrick Lewis?
Do you think he's ahead of Patrick Lewis?
That he beats him out?
Do you think Hunt is ahead?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, Patrick Lewis is serviceable, but I don't think he has the on-field awareness that Joey Hunt seems to have, and what the coaches are gravitating to. And I think that's a huge part of a makeshift offensive line. I mean, what Pete said is really what's going to happen? There's a lot of young faces, and some at different positions than years before, that are going to have to gel right away. So you want a center with some pretty good on-field awareness and making sure everybody knows what they need to do. So I think he does get a leg up on Lewis from day one.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on, 7th round now. I'm going to make a bold statement here. I think this pick could prove to be my favourite pick of the lot. CJ Prozis is probably a close second, but Kenny Lawler, wide receiver out of Cal, 6'2", 205, just seems to have sometimes catch. And for him to be there at this point in the 7th round could prove to be an absolute steal in my eyes. Like Alex Collins before him, is he someone else who's fell into our laps?
Yeah, it definitely seems like it. I was actually going to ask you because he seemed like an early day 3 guy, and so for him to fall this far, is it just his frame? Because I know the word string bean has been attached to him.
Yeah, I think so, and also I think he's, again, like Alex Collins. I think his workout. I think he's 40 times a little on the slow side, so I think that's kind of hurt him in some people's eyes. But if as you said with Nick Vanette earlier on, you put this guy in the red zone or within the 25-yard line, he's making some ridiculous catches look easy. There's the one-handed one I saw on one of the. I was Jared Goff, the number 1 pick, thrown to him as well.
Yeah,
but he also had a crazy receptions to touchdowns conversion rate. I think it was a third. I think I read somewhere that a third of his catches were touchdowns. So while he wasn't obviously used or targeted that much to be number 1, number 2 guy for the number 1 overall pick, and to still be there in the 7th round, it's Sidney Royce. It's got me all looking forward to what Russell can do with a body type and body size like that. I think Sidney Rice is exactly how we used him in the 1 year he had with Russ. Is probably how we're going to see Lawler used down the road. Do you see the comparisons to Sidney Rice?
I do, yeah. And there was immediate trust between Wilson and Rice from the get-go, which is pretty cool. And for Lawler and Goff to look so good at Cal, I mean, that stat, I mean, just the receptions.
I'm going to have to check that one, but I'm pretty certain.
Well, if it's 1 and 3, that's absolutely.
Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, if it's 1 and 3, that's absolutely ridiculous. So it's amazing that he fell this far. But to help make Jared Goff look even better, I mean, John Schneider was extolling his hands for sure, being able to make some great catches away from his body and make things look easy when they're really not. I mean, it was kind of what we were expecting out of Chris Matthews after the Super Bowl. I mean, a guy that Wilson could trust maybe in the red zone, a guy who's a little bit on the taller side, could catch some just air balls. And obviously Matthews didn't end up being that guy, but Lawler, I mean, again, it might be his workouts that might have made him fall this far, but for him to look so good with the #1 overall pick, and for Schneider to be so excited about his catching ability, I think you're making a safe comment, actually, and that he's going to be the steal of the draft. Although I'm like you in that Prozice is one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, I've just thought it up. Someone tweeted a couple of weeks ago that M3. So it's still a hefty. It's still quite an impressive number.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, especially for the 7th round. Obviously, the final of the 10 was yet another running back, Zach Brooks Clemson. He's someone who I nearly mocked to us in the 7th round of our mock last week, but thought if they were going to go running back, they would go earlier, which they did twice. Were you surprised that they went running back for?
Yeah, I am. I thought there was going to be a throwaway kind of quarterback pick, and obviously that's kind of how they went with some of the undrafted free agents, but it kind of felt like 3 was a little bit too much because I was such a big fan of what Thomas Rawls was able to do. And I mean, it makes sense, of course, with the way Christian Michael has looked and whether or not Rawls comes back right away or is not quite what he was, at least in the first year back. It's just a contingency plan, making sure the Seahawks cover all their bases. Obviously, the run game is going to be super important. So I'll have to look a little bit more into Brooks. I didn't see a ton of him. But, again, just them covering all their bases, really.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing that's come to my mind over the last couple of days when I've been looking up and down the list of draft picks we made, obviously drafted free agents as well, is that when Lynch was there, Christian Michael obviously came back, but Rod Smith was plucked from our practice squad or maybe the waivers by Dallas. And apart from Tuco Afu and Coleman, who was having his issues off field, at one point that may come into consideration when they approach this draft, which clearly is a decent looking player, little underused last year, but he is someone who probably got the longest route to the roster, but he has esque impact on the coach. And there was the melee that was drafted free agents. They signed Jake Heaps earlier today. Any names of note for you in that heavy? I think it's the biggest crop of free agents in the NFL, which is a surprise when the roster's as competitive and strong as the Seahawks was.
Yeah, I mean, with the success that the Seahawks have had, though, with undrafted free agents, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that they're digging deep and signing a bunch of guys. I mean, it's low risk, of course, and you might find a ton of hidden gems. So, I mean, they brought in Wisconsin Badger in Tanner McAvoy, who's kind of a Swiss Army knife. Yeah, he's a Swiss Army knife for sure. He can do a bunch of different things. I haven't heard exactly what Seattle will try and work him out as. I don't particularly like him as a quarterback, but he's one of the best athletes to come out of Wisconsin in the past couple of years for sure. Can play safety because he's a nice big guy, but great athleticism. I mean, he can run the read option as well. So just a tremendous athlete, and I think he could be a good fit for the Seahawks. I mean, they've dabbled with other Badgers in undrafted free agency as well, a number of them throughout the year. So I guess I'm not surprised that they're looking back towards Wisconsin. Obviously, the Darrell Bevel connection, but I'm not sure if he makes the team. But that was immediately a name that came out to me because he can play both offense and defense, and he actually did that in college this past year, playing on both sides of the ball as a starter. So it was pretty special for sure. So that's a guy I'm looking at. Trayvon Boykin, of course, as well, an athletic guy who's supposed to be a Heisman contender. And the word about Vernon Adams, that was something we were all thinking about as well. So these athletic kind of quarterback types have been intriguing to me, at least initially.
Yeah, I think with McAvoy, I think I've seen somewhere like he's been listed as a tight end initially.
Really?
I'm trying to find confirmation of. I'm pretty certain that's where he was quite sure it wasn't a quarterback. It was definitely. I'm almost positive it was tight end. Okay. So to answer that question, Boykin for me is just that's fun. That's a lot of fun. His accuracy is questionable at times. I think he had a 66% completion rate, which isn't too bad. But if you see some of Josh Doxson's catches, they are harder than they should have been, which obviously helped his Josh Duck. But that's something that they can obviously work on with Carl Smith and Darrell Bevel and Pete Carroll. The fact that they're giving the same signing bonus on the deal as Thomas Rawls and Doug Baldwin clearly puts him ahead of the queue to make the team. Obviously, this week at minicamp is going to be a lot of fun if you can sneak into the VMAC and see it with Vernon Adams and Trayvon Boykin just running around. I think it's the final preseason game last year where the game was pretty terrible, but BJ Daniels came in and it made the fourth week preseason game a lot of fun to watch because he was just doing absolutely ad-libbing everywhere and throwing backwards and sideways and off his back foot and all sorts. And that's what people are going to see from Boykin. But if they can calm Boykin down a little bit in the pocket, they've got a more than serviceable running back, quarterback who seems to be a fit for the system that they like to run with Russell, and the similarities with Russell are clearly there. But same as you, Vernon Adams, the talk at breakfast on Sunday morning in Manchester was of we've signed Vernon, because obviously it happened overnight for us. So that was a pretty cool to wake up and see his name attached to the Seahawks. Only in the camp invite, clearly, but yeah, Adams and Boykin, the two names that stuck out immediately. I think Tyvis Powell is quite a nice pickup. He would have been someone who I'd have quite happily taken with the Zach Brooks pick. I think he's probably got, on the defensive side, probably the easiest path to a spot, with obviously no one really behind Thomas and Chance has got McRae, but Earl Thomas, so that could be a spot he has nailed down by the time they enter training camp, let alone exit training camp. Christian French, who come up in our mock draft, he could have a way to the team. What do you make of French particularly, but did you see much of Tyvis Powell?
Not a ton of Tyvis Powell, but did have high upside for sure. I think he ran a 4.46, so he's got pretty good athleticism. Good size at 6'3". And for French, I mean, a guy who could definitely help linebacker depth. Obviously, the wrist injury cut his year short, but got great length at 6'5", and then 2.5 bills as well. So he'll get I think it was Pete Carroll who said he'll get a shot at strong side linebacker. And he was another guy who got a signing bonus, which to me says that there was some kind of talk from other teams that were looking at him. So just a snag. So that's encouraging because he does look like he's got some upside to him.
He certainly does look like a Seahawk, especially the role he's probably going to play. Obviously, the Bruce Irvin position he's up for grabs. Elsewhere, there's one player who was interested because of his spark numbers, which go to came to attention a couple of weeks ago doing the mock draft I did over Twitter for the last few weeks. Brandon Bryant from Florida Atlantic, a defensive tackle who I think was between John Bullard and Ronald Blair in the Spark chart, I think I read, which is impressive. Which is decent company to have. But then of interesting note is the depth chart that they've put together. He's listed as a running back fullback.
Okay.
So first off, what did you make of the fit on the defensive side? Did you see any of him? And what are your thoughts on what seems to be another convert?
Yeah, I mean, I like the thought of him converting. I mean, 289, maybe a little on the light side if they wanted him to be a pure defensive tackle, but a guy who could come in a goal line package potentially. Ran a 4.8, and then did he have an injury this past year as well that might have? I
think so. Yeah, but if you watch I linked one of the guys I was with on Sunday. I was talking about him because I saw his name on the list. I sent him the video, and his words were that he's penciled in his jersey for the fall. There's one he wants to buy if he makes the team. So if you can find it on YouTube or Draft Breakdown, it's definitely one to watch. He just spends all his time in the backfield at that FAU. So the fullback convert is interesting. It's probably the position which is weakest at this minute with Tuko Afu. I don't think he's under contract. Derek Coleman's only on a tender. So yeah, Bryant or Brendan Cotton's still knocking about. He could be someone. And they signed the guy Tani Tupu from the Huskies, who seems to be the perfect Seahawk fullback from just pure measurables. Obviously, didn't really see much of him because Myles Gaskin took all the headlines for the Huskies last year. But yeah, Bryant's interesting if he stays on the defensive line, but if they convert him like they did to a certain extent with Tuko Afu, then that just makes him even more interesting and probably gives him a better chance of making the team. Anyone else who stood out for you on the undrafted free agent list?
Just names that I'll have to take a look at. I mean, Montez Overton, because I'm still concerned about linebacker depth. If French doesn't impress enough, I mean, this is a guy out of East Carolina, listed at 6'2", 223, so a little bit on the lighter side. But some of these outside linebackers who are undrafted, they can try and sneak up on you throughout summer camp and preseason. So I'll have to give that guy a look because he sounded intriguing, and he has a couple years of starting time under his belt too.
Yeah, he certainly does flash. He's someone I actually did watch a little bit of when I could find clips. His 40 time wasn't that impressive, but he looks quicker. He looks like a quick player. He looks like again, to a lesser extent to French, but he looks like a Seahawk. And obviously then they signed Jake Heaps today, which is really fun for the quarterback run. So as it stands, with all the bevy of draft picks and drafted, who should be the most worried? Which, not long tenured, but which more than last year tenured Seahawks is under the most pressure right now?
Oh gosh. Longest tenured guy. I mean, with what I've been hearing about Lawler, I mean, any of the wide receivers might be afraid at this point because it seems like he has a really high ceiling and could even take over some of the more starting jobs. So maybe not the likes of Doug Baldwin right away, but I mean the guys under him. I mean, Curse, Lockett, if he comes back. I haven't heard how Ricardo Lockett's doing in quite a while, but
it doesn't sound
not
playing
promising.
Wise. It doesn't sound playing wise promising, no. But I think he's starting to accept that it's probably possibly done.
Okay. Well, yeah, I really like this guy, Lawler. I think he could jump up the depth chart at least right away and surprise a few people.
Yeah, my initial reaction when I saw Lawler was picked was trying to find out the breakdown of Curse's contract and what it is after next year. Because if Lawler does pop, Richardson stays healthy, and you've got Tyler Lockett, you've got Doug Baldwin, obviously, you've got Jimmy Graham, who you can mix up, hopefully, if he's back healthy. Although Victor Cruz is just in the back of my mind with Jimmy Graham.
Yeah.
They could have a decision to make with Jermaine Kearse, because Kearse could be the one who loses out if he does bring a Sidney Rice-like game to the table in this offense with Doug Baldwin doing what he does, Tyler Lockett showing what he did last year. If Jermaine Kearse's contract is built in such a way where cutting him in 12 months' time is not that disastrous for the cap space and all everything else that comes with it, then that could be something to watch out for.
I've actually got it up now via Spot Track, and the cap hit for this year would just be 2.6, but it goes up by $2 million every year after that.
So what's it looking like? Dead cap.
Let's see, dead cap. Yeah, I got it right here. Dead cap is 6.3 this year. Oh. And then it goes down to 3.6 in 2017 and then 1.8 in 2018.
See, if you give a 7th round wide receiver 2 years to make an impact, obviously Golden takes the 2nd round, and it took him 3 years to really step up. That could be the likelihood of Jermaine Kearse seeing out his contract is taking a hit over the weekend, I think.
Well, still, Kearse is going to have to produce for sure.
Yeah, and earlier than December as well.
Yeah.
For me, the one he's not longest tenured, he hasn't really done a lot. I think Kevin Pierre-Louis could be on his way out, or the closest to the exit door of the players who have been around a while. As I say, he hasn't really done much. He hasn't really been able to escape the niggles and niggling injuries. And while he has been on these, either been over aggressive, or he's just been naive, which is obviously comes with a lack of playing time at the NFL. But obviously with Christian French, with Monteith Everton, with KJ Wright, Eric Pinkins, still have hopes for him that he could latch on and see some field playing time this year. Mike Morgan somehow is still knocking about. Just a few pure special teams studness. Is that a word?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for me, KPL is probably the one who should have eyes in the back of his head. Nothing they did this weekend has changed my thought that Brandon Browner won't be on the team come week 1 when we play the Dolphins. Do you agree? Obviously, they didn't draft the corner, but they picked up 2 in free agency.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of KPL having to look over his shoulder, because he's had some opportunities, of course, but looked like his ceiling was kind of just a special teams guy who can block for the kicker, for the kickoff returner. So that, I think that's a good prediction. And Browner, I mean, he's a guy who the Seahawks know what he can do, the guy who fits their system well. So it's, again, though, it's kind of a low risk, high reward. I mean, if he regains what he had in Seattle, and to an extent when he was a Patriot too, then all the better for him. But that's just it's just a fan favorite that they can bring back, see if he still has any of that old juice. But again, I mean, they went deep with younger corners over the past few years via trades or free agent pickups or waiver acquisitions, what have you. And then, of course, additional moves like you just said. It makes it tough for a veteran guy like him. If he doesn't have the same spark that he did when he was in Seattle previously, it makes it a bit of a launch shot for sure.
Yeah, I think that's exactly. I think that's it on the nose. They seem to be leaning towards using him differently to how they did a couple of years ago when he was here first, obviously, because he's got older and people like Jeremy Lane have stepped up. Ty Smith is possibly poised for a breakout, I think, this year. He's someone with a bang and jump for all summer long, especially with he's got Mindut Sherman in his corner as well. So I think Brian has. I just don't see it. I think Say got Stanley Jean-Baptiste, Ty Smith, got Deshaun Shedd. They've got even the converts with George Fireman. They've got in. I just see the deck stacked against Brandon Browner. Apparently, the Sonics Arena has just been voted down in Seattle again, which is ridiculousness. Oh. That's why I was distracted. Just got a text.
Gotcha.
Which is absolute ridiculousness. But this is about Seahawks. The Sonics can wait for another day, clearly. So obviously there's not as I said earlier, there's a bit of a lull now. What do you think's next on the Seahawks docket? Cam Chance's contract is still probably going to be a question mark. Michael Bennett's same. Doug Baldwin could be due a renewal. Pete Carroll could be due a renewal. What do you see next on the docket for the Seahawks?
Well, I'd like them to address Pete right away. I mean, this is a guy who's come in and just done a fantastic job, built a really fun culture for these players, gets the most out of them. Just seems like a really fun guy too, and puts in a ton of work. But he looks like he's having fun every single Sunday, so he's a pretty cool coach to watch on the sidelines. But you know there's a ton of work that goes in every week. And then beyond him, I'd give it to Doug Baldwin right away. You don't want to wait too long and he feels like he's disrespected, because he's very productive when he's playing with a chip on his shoulder, but there's got to be some kind of validation there too to keep him content in Seattle.
Yeah, for sure. I do think Pete will be the first one that they approach. They might already approach it. I think last time we renewed it was all hush hush until, oh, by the way, the coach has signed for 3 more years. Yeah, I think the Michael Bennett one is going to be the one that's going to drag out. I think Cam Chancellor, although he still seems a little salty, he seems to be handling it better. They do legitimately seem to lie out. So what that means for the summer, we'll obviously wait and see. Now the draft's out of the way, they probably just turn to one. So we'll get this out of the way, then we'll approach this. But I think for me, Pete's the one. I think Baldwin could be someone they do what they did with Dave this week. All eyes will be on the Mariners for a few more weeks until they fail again. But yeah, is there anything else you want to talk about, bring up for the last over the summer?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to ask, I haven't bothered to search around to see what some analysts are grading the Seahawks draft. Have you seen any letter grades yet?
PFF was C.
Okay.
I think that's more the Fed. Kuiper gave us a B minus, maybe a C. NFL.com gave us A, but that was over the days, not the overall. So day 1 was A, day 2 was A, day 3 was A. So it's been pretty positive. A couple of picks withstanding. Yeah, got to a point now where team draft. Yeah, it's interesting. To be fair, as I said earlier to someone else, this team is theirs. I think David Sue put on Twitter at the minute, and good luck in 56 from the 109 currently, because this is a team deep all over the board, apart from full back to a certain extent, although it's probably less important in the modern NFL. It's still a position where we don't really have a nailed-on starter in that terms. Whichever one wins out this weekend or over the next position looks strong. Offensive looks stronger just for the sheer mass of humanity. That wide receiver, as we said, with Lawler on board, with Richardson coming back, with Tyler, with Doug, with Curse, with the two short of sticking around that, but still, it's deep safety. If Tyvis Powell makes a step up, could be a strong point. Defensive line is just it's versatile as anything. And if any other unit in the league, we've got so many players who can play possibly all 4 positions on the defensive line and still be productive. It's a deep roster. Do you agree, or do you think that for you are the more weak points than I've just pointed out?
No, I think there's a ton of strength right now to this roster. I mean, they got additional picks and really shored up the definite areas of need, and now it looks really, really good. I'm very excited by this defensive line now. We'll see how quickly the offensive line will gel together. I think if there's a definite plan already in place for the summer and the preseason, that makes me a little bit more optimistic than last year. We won't see as much mix and matching unless someone really disappoints right away, which hopefully that doesn't happen. I'd like some kind of solidification right away. But I'm really excited about this roster, and I'm again these undrafted free agents as well. A couple that we'll have to key in on a little bit more, but they could be sleepers throughout the summer, particularly these linebackers to get that strong side spot.
Definitely, I think that is probably the biggest question mark. Obviously, you got health of Jimmy Graham as well, which we might not know until after training camp. It might be the same with obviously Earl Thomas was it's a major surgery, but to a less extent to what Jimmy Graham's going through, the rehab he's going through.
Yeah.
So I think the Earl Thomas trajectory of his off season last year and how he kind of took a few weeks to get his sea legs. Obviously, not as long as Cam Chancellor did, but I think that's definitely the trajectory we need to watch with Jimmy Graham. But Jimmy Graham replacing Bruce Irvin, they are probably the two biggest question marks. So for you, it's going to be fun to watch this weekend. All the tweets come in about it, but Boykin or Adams, who do you think is going to win out?
I think Boykin. I mean, he had such a high ceiling going into this last collegiate year, and it was a little disappointing, but I think he's got some good skill set that will translate, and he should work well learning from how Russell Wilson's been able to succeed as a similar type quarterback. So I'll give the nod to Boykin right now. Yeah,
and also he is entering the week with the signing bonus in his back pocket and also his collegiate centre right next to him in the locker room. So that could also be beneficial to him. Vernon Adams, it seems, was let down. Well, I think was it his velocity of his throws was something unnamed scouts put up over the weekend when he fell out of the draft, which by the time the third day around was a bit of a surprise. So yeah, I think for me, Boykin's in the clear lead. I think Trey Madden could really set some tongues wagging if he does produce over the weekend. He could be a long shot to make the team. But as I mentioned, Tyvis Powell is the name to watch for me outside of Boykin and Adams, because I just think he could be a Deshaun Shedd type player who could just do pretty much anything and really contribute for an undrafted free agent relative to an undrafted free agent. But yeah, so that is all for 2016 drafting Seahawks coverage and all the sort. Just like to thank Ken once again for joining me and contributing with all the articles and managing to get closer to my picks and in the mock draft. Obviously, Christian French. I think you had Christian French to us.
I did, yeah, 7th round.
Yeah, so while I had nobody, I don't think. Well, we all had Vernon. So I'd just like to thank you for all your hard work over the last few months and obviously the last couple of years. We'll be back when there's something to talk about. Obviously, probably close to training camp when that starts kicking into gear. We'll hopefully have a better idea of who the offensive line's going to be and how that's going to look aesthetically and size-wise, because at the minute it looks like it's going to be rather large. Which is something obviously Wilson was used to at Wisconsin, which could also be what they're thinking with that. But yeah, until something happens, hopefully next time we talk, Michael Bennett is happy as Larry, whoever Larry is. Cam Chancellor's in camp. Pete Carroll's here for another 8 years. John Schneider's there for another 8 years. And the Seahawks roster at this point still looks as strong. So until next time, thank you very much, Ken.
Thanks, Stuart. Always a pleasure.
Enjoy your summer and good luck with your finals and everything.
Oh, thank you very much.
No worries. All right, signing out. PFS, Pro Football Spot Seahawks.